Recently on the Dentist Who Invest podcast, we've done organic marketing and also paid ads with expert marketer to dentist Rahil Kumar. Now we're going to be talking about personal brand, which is, in my opinion, one of the greatest hacks to growing your business that people just don't know enough about and how it works. And first of all, we need to start out by defining it. You want to listen in on this one for sure in order to get yourself out there, knowing how that's done and also knowing how that can affect your bottom line whenever it's done correctly. Looking forward to this episode as ever. Welcome back to another episode of the Dentist Who Invest podcast. I'm joined today by two people, Mr. Rahil, Dr. Rahil Kumar. Are you a dentist?
I'm not a dentist.
Dude, I actually thought you were a dentist.
No, pure marketing, man. Pure marketing.
There we go. Just in the world of dentistry, I suppose. And then it kind of comes with the territory, I guess. It rubs off on you, that veneer, I suppose. And one person who is certainly a doctor, who's Dr. Dan Shaffer, who sat right next to me. And we're riding a little high today, actually, aren't we, guys? Because we're coming off the back of the Business of Dentistry event, which was but 24 hours ago. We were sat in this very room. It was
spectacular.
It certainly was flipping good and a lot of fun. And I can't believe that we had over 400 dentists in the room at one stage. It was a real pinch me moment. And not to get too nostalgic, looking back in Dentist Who Invest, I remember when I started the Facebook group, and I remember one of my best friends told me that it had a terrible name and it was never going to go anywhere. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to prove you wrong. And here we are 5 years later, still going, which is great. And it was a real culmination of all of that effort. But anyway, that's not even what we're supposed to be talking about today in this podcast. We're supposed to be talking about personal brand and how it can help dentists from the point of view of their businesses, but also just generally, I guess, in life. And I think that a lot of people overlook this or neglect this or understate its importance or maybe just don't realize how important it is. And I always remember one thing, just to quickly kick things off. I'm a fan of Alex Hormozi. Rahil, I know you like him as well. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Dan, heard of him?
A fan, yeah.
You're a fan?
Absolutely. You're
also a fan? I'm a fan of Alex Hormozi, and he has this one episode, right? And I used to listen to his content all the time, to be fair, but maybe not so much anymore. I used to be an avid Alex Hormozi podcast listener. Like every episode I'd be like, oh my god, a new episode. But I haven't listened to it in a while, and it was only because I felt like, okay, I'm kind of maybe hearing the same stuff again now, so I need to move on. I've obviously learned a lot of things. Anyway, he has this one episode, and it was the day that he realized how important personal brand was, and he'd been in business for quite a while. He'd sold a business for like 30 million, something along those lines. It was like I believe it was his business gym launch. I believe it was that. Anyway, I'm a little loose on the lore or the details, I suppose, but I remember the episode. And then I remember him talking about how he felt like he was quite confident on business. And then he saw something about how it was like Kim Kardashian, when she was 25, became a billionaire because she launched a business. And he was like, you know what, like, I'm pretty sure, no shade to her, perhaps she's very, has a background and all this stuff and everything along those lines, but he just felt like he had more under his belt by running businesses at that stage. And he was like, but then why am I not a billionaire? Like, how the freak does this work, right? And then he was like, what's actually happened here? And then he was like, dude, it's just because she's so famous that anything she launches just gets this huge amount of headway without her even really trying. And he's just like, I can be miserable and be begrudging about that, or I can just be like, this is how the world works, and just accept it and try to take advantage of the fact that this is the case, or make money from it. So I suppose, if that's the only thing in the whole wide world, but that was his perspective on it, and that's what taught him how powerful personal brand is. Anyway, that was an intro. That was the kind of setting the scene to what we're going to talk about today. Personal brand. Rahil, how has that benefited you? How do you feel that dentists in the UK could benefit from that? I guess it starts out with quantifying what it is, or qualifying what it is.
It's probably one of the hardest things to define.
Yeah.
Like, I think everyone kind of has their own definition of branding. Some people are more like, it's not actually a thing, it's to do with like a feeling. Some people are, it's something you don't control. It's like what your customers actually think about you. But I think there's a lot that, practice owners and dentists can actually do. And then it's not just about actually saying, oh, we're high quality, we're this, we're that, but actually every touch point of your brand actually demonstrating that. That's what some people, I think, don't get when it comes to branding. It's not just, oh yeah, we can say we're X, Y, and Z. It's like, okay, you've got to actually do this. And that's when your customers actually will look at you and be like, okay, what they're saying is true.
Sure, and I should mention as well that Rahil, the reason why you've got some experience in this matter is because, of course, you run My Smile Media, and that's obviously a joint venture with your dad, Sandeep, which is interesting. So you see dentists benefiting from this a lot, I'm sure, and you'll be the one who's trying to get them to see the light on that front, only because they're going to benefit from it.
100%. It's, I've seen firsthand kind of my dad's journey, and obviously where he started to where he is now. He's subconsciously, over a lot of those years, built a brand without him even knowing it, and then only in the past, I'd say, couple of years has it been more realized what he's doing. But you see it like all across the industry. Like, you think of the biggest names in the industry. You even think of the event that you guys held spectacularly yesterday.
Thanks, my man.
You're building a brand. You're building a following of people who get you. Like, these people. Like, the events on a Saturday. A lot of people have very exciting Saturday plans, but they chose, I'm gonna come to Business of Dentistry and I'm gonna listen to you guys. I'm gonna listen to all the people that are connected to your brand. It's like you build this following of like-minded people, and I think now more than ever, it's just exceptionally important. Like with AI, I think there's so much information wherever you want it. Like if I want information about something, I can find it. But the difference is having someone give you that information and intertwine, like, their own personal story, their own experience, which makes you trust them. Like, I think I go back to your story yesterday on stage, Dan, as one of the things that really stuck with me yesterday about the event. If you told any other story that was like, just a generic story, you can just pick it off the shelf, people probably would have stopped listening, go on their phone. But it was that personal story that comes with building a personal brand and being authentic that, really hit home for people.
I'll tell you what, you made me think just whilst you were talking there about me as a dentist. You made me reflect on what makes me my personal brand as a dentist. And I was just thinking whilst you were talking, there was stuff going on inside my head just to try and identify what it is that contributes to making me a personal brand. Is it the letters after my name? Well, probably not, because that's not me. Is it the fact that I've got doctor in front of my name? Well, probably not either. It used to be maybe 30 years ago, but nowadays it's very different.
100%.
And I think it's based around communication skills. What's your USP, your unique selling point? And that is the way that you talk with your patients, the way you present yourself. And I met some dentists yesterday, and I'm sure you've met lots yourself, who have 20,000 followers on Instagram. They have an Instagram page full of pictures of lovely teeth that they've done, and that's built a brand for them.
Yeah.
But without those communication skills and that integrity, that I am me as a dentist who you can trust, and it's a mixture of expertise and likability. Definitely. And if you get the mix right between expertise and you can showcase that, to your patients, like I'm really good at fillings, or I'm really good at crowns, or I'm really, whatever, or I'm a good endodontist. And then likability, well, you can trust me, you can talk to me, you can, tell me all kinds of stuff, and we hear all kinds of things in the dental surgery. If you mix those two properly, you get trust. And this is what patients want, and this is how you build your brand. And so I was just reflecting on that and thinking, in fact, that integrity is so important as the USP behind your personal brand.
100%. And it comes back to a lot of dentists will focus on the service that they offer, the what, be it, be that clear aligners like Invisalign, be that implants, be it bonding, be it whatever. But from a customer's point of view, majority of them aren't educated enough to notice that the clinical skill, like, the gap in clinical skill. They think, okay, a dentist is a dentist.
Yeah.
So what are they actually choosing? They're buying into you as a person. And that's where, like, your story, your why, your authenticity, integrity, that likability, and actually, coming across as yourself. Like, there's no ROI in coming across as someone else. The best thing you can do is kind of be authentic, and people can tell when you're not. Like, you know, I'm sure you've been chatting to someone and you can tell, like, you know, you're very different in person to how you are on social media. And you always, you know.
But that mismatch, it's like a shop window, isn't
Yeah.
it? So you look at the shop window, or you look at the practice website, and you see all these lovely nurses with their hair done, you know, lacquered back, and smart uniforms, and all lined up at the right angle. Your branding colours match, and then you walk into the surgery, and the door hinge creaks, and there's a stain on the ceiling tile where there was a leaking pipe last year in the winter. And you think, hang on a second, it doesn't match up to my expectations.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a sticky piece of paper on the reception desk that says something irrelevant, and it's just like, you portray yourself as one thing, but for the customer, it's that whole journey. So if you are branding yourself as something, every touch point from, like, you know, obviously your messaging on, be it your ads, your social media, your website, yes, that digital journey is massive, but also you've got to, you know, you've got to talk the talk in the practice as well. So it's got to feel everything that you're saying it is.
And you know what, Dan, I actually, at the event, I had to nip out of the room when you were talking. I was preoccupied doing other things. But what was that story that you shared on stage? Just briefly.
What I did is I shared 3 stories, but the particular story that I think you're referring to is my own personal experience through a grief journey of losing my daughter. She was stillborn 18 years ago. And what I did is I took that experience as a grief journey and tried to explain how someone in deep grief feels, and how that matches with their professional life of being a dentist on a daily basis, and how it actually feels to sit there being immersed in grief, and also, after you've taken a bit of time off, being a dentist, and having that dentist persona and professionalism to meet 20 patients a day or 30 patients, whatever it is, go through the motions, but yet you feel like you're, you know, disembodied looking down at yourself in a film script, because you know, the reality is that you're in this grief journey. And that's very difficult for professionals, because, you know, dentists, doctors, lawyers, working in a shop, you know, whatever your walk of life, it doesn't really make any difference. You still eventually need to go out and make money and work and bring home money for food and rent and bills. But yet that's very, very difficult to reconcile the two. And when I looked out to the audience and I said to them, and I didn't use that personal story in order to upset the audience at all. In fact, the opposite. I didn't see anyone crying, but I saw people nodding. And they recognized when I said to them, anyone who's been through difficulty, divorce, grief, all these life events, and you need to integrate that with your professional life, that is really, really difficult. It's just not easy. And everyone nods around the room because everyone recognizes that idea. And they've also been through that, you know, idea. And it can be something maybe not traumatic. You know, you've had a new baby, and until that baby's about, you know, 20 years old, their life's going to affect yours in so many different ways. When they're a toddler, when you're sleepless, you know, when they're growing up, when they're a teenager, you've got worries. You're still going to be a dentist, and that's an amazing idea. So that's the kind of story I was telling.
Understood. And you know, Dan, it's interesting because I know obviously you've always been someone who's up for putting themselves out there, but I guess is it fair to say that that's maybe been accelerated over the last year or so since we started Business of Dentistry? That's grown even more. Would you?
Well, me putting myself out there.
I guess maybe just the amount, the content that is going out, that's going out, and your visibility and everything along those lines. Would you agree?
So as far as my personal development goes, I've always been very keen on digital production, digital architecture. I love websites, I love film production, I love all of that side of stuff, including 3D scanning technology and printing. I'm just fascinated by anything digital. And my personal content production, yes, it has ramped up, and that's actually since COVID. Because when dentistry got taken away, and your identity as Dr. Shaffer, you know, with the BDS after your name, that gets stripped away because you closed down for 7 months. You think, well, what am I going to do? You know, am I just going to sit here? No, well, actually, I love film production. I've wanted to do it for years and never had the time and the opportunity to spend on developing those skills. So I sat down and I learned Adobe Premiere, I learned web design, I learned marketing, I learned, content production. And that's when it really ramped up, because it freed me up and I realized that this artistic skill and sensitivity had been hiding behind the science for decades of being a dentist, and it all just blew out the water. So you're absolutely right. Yeah, in the past few years, yes, the content production and getting myself out there has increased. And I feel very comfortable on a stage in front of hundreds of people, or doing small group courses, or being behind a camera, or in front of a camera. I just really enjoy it all.
Sure, and I just wanted to ask you one thing on that, and then I want to bring Rahil in on the kind of mechanics of it effectively. But what have you noticed, what benefits have you noticed in your life since you started to accelerate that journey, or accelerate that side of your career, I guess, really, where you're putting yourself out there more? How has that benefited? Because I think for me, something that held me back in the day was I was just like, how much will that help? Will that actually make a difference? And a lot of people are afraid to speak publicly and do content and things along those lines. And it's like, there's that fear. There's a saying that I heard, and it's, it really resonated with me. It was comfort zones. What's the word I'm looking for? They disguise themselves is the word I'm looking for. Comfort zones disguise themselves as logic. Okay, comfort zones disguised as logic, right? And it's like, you feel scared, and how your brain, that's the subconscious feeling that you feel, like in the deep part of your brain, and how your conscious part of your brain rationalizes that is, oh, well, it probably won't really help you that much anyway. It probably really isn't that good a thing to do. You know what I mean? Whereas in reality, it is, and that on some level, but that's how we rationalize our fear. And it's so important to be self-aware enough to understand that, right? Yeah. And definitely I did that a lot back in the day, and it held me back. And now I have been on the other side of that. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I love doing this stuff. You know what I mean? So I guess a lot of people are yet to see that. So in order to help those people understand why it's beneficial, how do you feel it's helped you in your life, or what's changed since you started to accelerate that?
Well, I know you like your quotes. What about Beverly Knight, shoulda, woulda, coulda? And I always think shoulda, woulda, coulda means you're out of time. Yeah, so you can say, well, I should have done that, I would have done that, I could have done that, but actually going out there and doing it and then chucking it out there is much better. And another quote for you, the Dr. Pepper advert, what's the worst that can happen? Someone's going to call you an idiot, so does it really matter?
Yeah, I know.
If you go wrong, you say the wrong thing, or your video doesn't quite work, whatever it is, you put your content out there and it flops, no one's going to remember it tomorrow. You're only as good as your last bit of content, and you can do another piece tomorrow. So I kind of lost fear of that kind of side of things, and just carry on doing what you're doing. If you're enjoying it and you're putting quality stuff out there that respects integrity, and people quite like it and they talk to you about it, then you're probably doing something right. Carry on doing it. And if people don't notice it and you're enjoying it, then still do it.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are just scared, I guess, of making themselves look silly, aren't they, right? Yeah. But there's a really interesting thought experiment that you can play, where you just think in your head, can you consciously, you probably saw somebody do something silly at least 7 days ago, right? Within the last week, okay? But I can't remember what any of those things are off the top of my head, right? Like, that's genuinely how people perceive you as well. Like, they literally don't care, And it's
nobody cares funny about it as much as you do.
Literally, right? It's a bigger thing in your head. But yeah, no, this is the thing, and I wanted to bring you on this one, on this one, Rahil, because you literally helped Dennis do this, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is literally your 9 to 5, right? Or at least part of it anyway, right? And I guess I'm curious to ask you, so we've heard of the benefits a little bit, we've kind of explored how that looks. How does it then actually do that? Like, how does that look? How does that actually manifest in their life? Is it content? Is it public speaking? Is it something else that we haven't talked about up until now?
There's all sorts of different ways that you can do it. Like, obviously content is the one that's trending right now, should we say, but there's so many different forms of content as well. I think everyone is very obsessed, and rightly so, with the way that the apps are pushing it with video content and wanting to, similar to what we're doing today, like, having this conversation. But what I've kind of realized is that if you're not comfortable being on camera, yes, you still need to push yourself out of your comfort zone and try these new things. But if it gets to that stage where you resent it every time you get on camera, there are so many other forms of content that people just don't think of. I think like LinkedIn, for example, some people, while they may not be able to articulate their points on camera, when it comes to writing it down, oh my God, I can scroll through some of their posts for days. And there's so many people in the industry who do that really well. So it's finding kind of a content medium that works for you, as well as another big thing for dentists, because not everyone is comfortable on video. But I think the big thing that we try to do when it comes to branding, personal branding, is trying to really get something like, why are you doing this? Like, for some people, it's, there's no point having a brand just for the sake of it. For a practice and for a dentist, there's completely different reasons to have a brand. For an associate, like, you're bound by the practice that you work in. But let's say if that principal decides to sell, what happens to you? For them, building a personal brand, showing off their cases, showing off their expertise, but also them as a person and getting people to buy into them, not only brings them patients, but it also future-proofs them, that just in case they do leave that practice and they need to go somewhere else, they have this foundation to fall back on.
It's a portable brand, your personal brand.
It follows you wherever you go. It's not, bound to the practice. And then from a practice's point of view, like, you can name, probably 10, 20 massive brands in dentistry off the top of your head. And like, we obviously, specialize in Invisalign a lot, and there's this big fear at the minute of this race to the bottom. But then you'll see there's some practices and some brands that are able to consistently charge a high price and nobody bats an eyelid. Why? Because they've built their brand already. People know what it is that they're going to get from them, and they trust them to do it. So instead of having to compete on price, they maintain themselves as one of the as one of the luxury kind of practices in the market. So for them, they get patients kind of coming to them because they've already done the grunt work of building the brand, putting themselves out there, letting it be known that this is what we do, and backing it up with proof. Whereas everyone else is undercutting each other and this, that, and the, but these guys are actually getting patients to come to them, which obviously makes your marketing easy. If you've got a recognizable brand, and you think about it not just in dentistry, which is what I think we always get bogged down to think we like to live in this little bubble. But what what we're trying to train people to do is actually look outside of dentistry and look at all of these big brands that you trust. Whenever you need to make a decision and you don't know what to do, you're most likely going to fall back on something that you trust. That's just human nature. So there's so many benefits for both practices and associates to build it, but actually finding out why you want to do this is kind of where we start, and realizing that this isn't just, oh yeah, slap a logo on my Instagram posts, or a nice fancy new homepage on the website solves everything. There is so much more that kind of goes into it than that.
Is Instagram still the go-to to build a personal brand?
I think Meta as a whole is where we go, and it's purely because it's where our audience is. If you look at everyone's average screen time, for example, I think that metric just keeps going up and up and up. I think mine is about 9 hours. And
it's shocking, isn't it? When you get that little notification at the end of the day, and I'm like, how have I spent 6 hours on my phone today? Like, I just don't know how that's happened.
And if you can break it down by where you spend it in terms of your apps as well.
I'm not sure I want to know.
It's the same apps that always appear on mine at the top, but it's not just this way for us. It's the same for our audience as well. They're the ones also spending time on this. And the way that the algorithms are with social media now, they're so clever. And people get, so confused with the algorithms these days. And the way I kind of like to look at it and reframe it is the algorithm's job is to keep you on that app for as long as possible. So they need to show you content that is, gonna either entertain you or solve your problem or make you feel seen. They want to keep you on that app as long as possible. And Instagram, Meta as a whole, do that phenomenally well. And you either be you're either a creator or a consumer. You either sit there scrolling, doom scrolling, or you're actually this is where my potential patients are. I'm gonna put myself out there and go and do it. You'll be hard pressed to find someone without an Instagram account these days. I'm pretty sure if you did a hands up with with the 400 people that you had yesterday, I'd be surprised if there's anyone there without a Meta account. And it's probably the same for the people, out on the street. There are potential patients, this is where they spend their time. So you've got to go to them.
And it's really interesting actually what you're saying, because that infinite scrolling made up of autoplay videos, video content is king, of course. So if you're watching video, short form video, you've got to, if you want to have yourself in there, you've got to create short-term video, because you're competing. So you as a dentist or you as a dental practice, short form video is absolutely king, because that's what people are watching constantly on doom scrolling 6 hours or 9 hours. And another really interesting thing that happened when they started taking phones out of schools was they realized that even though school children didn't have phones, secondary school children, during the daytime, they still had the same average screen time by the end of the day, because they made up for it after school time. And that's fascinating, and I'm sure it's the same in adults as children. It's going to be no different. Just because you take your phone away or put it somewhere else or stop, looking at content, you will then make up for it in the evening.
Yep.
It's fascinating.
The algorithms they're so good these days, isn't it? It's like, everyone's feed is just perfectly curated for you.
Yeah. I hear it's changing though. So I hear that they're actually introducing a lot more random stuff instead of algorithmic triggers, and that keeps it fresh, because everyone's a little bit bored of being in an echo chamber.
Yeah, so it kind of depends on the content that you engage in, the content that you like. So if you get a video and you're on it for 2 seconds and you swipe up, the algorithm is like, okay, this sort of content this person isn't engaging with. But if you watch a video the whole way through, it sends another signal to the algorithm that he likes this sort of content. I'm going to push more of it. Yeah. So the algorithms are so clever these days. But what I think dentists sometimes fail to get with them is, and it comes back to this, living inside a bubble. You're not just in competition with other dentists when it comes to the algorithm. You are in competition with someone just got engaged, someone's just gone on holiday. There's, all of this AI brain rot content. There's all these funny that's where your content's sitting. It's not sitting in this echo chamber of just dental content. Yeah. It is sitting in a on social media with everything else. So if your content is literally just one thing over and over again, and for majority of dentists is that static before and after, you're not just in this, compared to other dentists before and after, you're compared to everything. And if people think, oh yeah, this doesn't fit what I usually like, they scroll past it. It's just finding, each platform's made for different things. And it's realizing that, okay, I need to play to the platform's strengths here. You're not gonna, as much as we want to, we're not gonna change the way that Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn is. They're built for specific purposes, and your content has to
and
follow
it's not
that.
just about socials, is it? I mean,
100%.
as a dental clinic, you're positioned not just against other dental clinics like it used to be decades ago. Consumers, well, I'm going to call them consumers, not patients.
Yep, 100%.
Because they're consumers. Your patients are consumers, and they're going to compare your practice and your service to Barclays Bank or Virgin Trains or Budgeons or whatever else other services they use.
Hotels, wellness, but you see
when they come in, they're expecting the level of service that they get from other companies and businesses.
You see practices these days, they look more like wellness retreats than they do dental practices now, and it's
you're comparing with David Lloyd gyms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's it's moved far beyond just what it used to be before, with just how a typical NHS practice used to look, and then it comes down to, again, that branding. It's not just obviously what you see on social media, it's all of these touch points from when they walk into the practice. One thing that we're experimenting with is how does the practice smell like when you walk in?
Yeah.
It's the same thing when you walk into a luxury hotel. Sure. There's always a smell,
and things you don't think about, like how thick is the toilet paper. Or, weird, but, is the loo brush new?
It's the most ignored part of a dental practice is the toilet. Yeah. Everyone puts so much emphasis on, I need this dental chair, I need this, I need this screen above the patient. But then a lot of patients, when they actually come into the practice and they need the toilet and it looks run down or it's in the corner. It's like, what image does that send?
People use the toilet as kind of like a milestone almost, like a marker. And I know my wife, when she goes to people's houses, and I hope none of my friends are listening to this, because she'll go into the loo and she'll comment later on, oh, that loo was lovely, or wasn't the wallpaper nice? They've just done it, or they're very clean house. The toilet is the heart of the home in a way. It's very weird to think of it like that.
There's a saying, right, and it's something along the lines of, you can judge the sophistication of a society by the standard of their bathrooms, or something. There's something like that. I remember reading that somewhere, and I remember someone quoted that, and then they said, and if that's true, Japan is the pinnacle of the developed world, I guess, really.
I did this.
Anyway, moving on.
I did this at the hotel. When I walked into the bathroom, I checked behind the door for any dust on the floor to see whether the room was clean. Yeah. And people do use arbitrary markers in dental clinics, as well as looking at socials.
Okay.
Like in socials, is the logo central? Is it proper? Is it a bit scrappy? And if you don't do it properly, then people notice it very quickly.
Good point, Dan. And what do dentists do wrong when it comes to their personal brand, Rahil? Like, where do they mess up? Like, what has you scrolling through your Instagram feed and you see something and you're like, oh man, seriously?
The biggest thing that a lot of them do wrong is they don't do it. Is honestly, if you want the biggest thing is that they don't see the importance of it. I think for both practices and associates, I think we've covered it in depth. Like, there are so many benefits to actually being able to be seen. Because if you're not on, if you're not doing this, you're just invisible. You're relying on people to find you in ways that, yes, people still use it, but you've got to adapt to the way that your customers, their buying and their searching habits are. And I'm pretty sure we can all attest to it now. It's no longer just as simple as, oh, I see an ad, I go to a landing page, I book in, yep, it's done. It's like you're inviting them almost to be part of your world now. The amount of touch points it takes someone to actually submit an inquiry has gone through the roof. I think some people are saying they need to see you upwards of 10, 15 times before they're especially if they have no knowledge of you, to actually book that first appointment with you. Now, if you consider it in terms of, if they need to see me 15 times and they're not seeing me on social media, suddenly that 15 times is like, well, where are they going to find me? So in essence, if you're not doing it, you're invisible. So actually getting started is a massive thing. And then the other thing is kind of following what the biggest names in the industry are doing is another one. And there's nothing wrong with taking inspiration. I think we all do it, both inside and outside of dentistry. We all kind of look for inspiration wherever we can find it. But just copying someone just because, let's say, I think the big example is Milad, the singing dentist. Just because he's made it, he's made his brand doing it this way, doesn't mean that someone else can just come in I'm going to now start making dental parodies and be successful. He did it, and the way that he does it is so authentic, it's so real, it's so him, that it's worked. If someone else does it and they're just doing, and someone can tell you're just doing it for the views, it won't have the same effect. And you were talking about influencers before, and obviously they've got a big following, but the amount of influencers that will launch something, they'll launch a product, they'll launch a course, they'll endorse something, and people won't buy it because they're not actually bought into that influencer as a person. They just they just follow them because they made a trending reel that they liked or something. It's not necessarily about having the biggest following. I think that's what a lot of people get confused about. It's not we don't need to go viral as a dentist a lot of the time, but you need to have the right people following you, the right people trusting you, buying into your message, and that's what really makes the difference and then compounds over time.
Nice. And yeah, I mean, how can I say this? I think for a lot of people, it's just getting started, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And would you say the biggest barrier is mainly comfort zones?
Yeah, I think in one sense, it's I'm on this journey now myself. I think the team have been on me to start doing my own personal brand, and I'm now encountering the same thing that every dentist is constantly moaning at me about, and I'm saying, no, you've just got to do it. It's not easy. It is not easy to put yourself out there and be open open to judgments. But I think the thing that I'm starting to, to realize is that I will overanalyze my content so much more than anyone else will. So it is in essence like,
Sure.
getting, figuring out why you're doing it and then breaking it up into, you don't need to do everything at once. You're not going to go from starting it tomorrow to, famous in a week. It's very rare to have overnight successes, as you both know in dentistry. It takes time, it takes repetitions. Like, people compare social media to the gym and they expect, oh yeah, first post, gonna go viral. It's like going to the gym once and expecting to be completely ripped. No, but what it does is it teaches you, like, okay, this is what I need to do. And it's reps, 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 finding out what exercises you're comfortable with. Like, some people hate certain exercises in the gym and they'll go away from them, but they love this. It's just finding out what you're, what you're comfortable with, and then just reps, reps, reps. There's no substitution for it.
And I guess where you can help is you can obviously set up and you can advise, I guess, really on how a dentist goes about that, because you've seen it so many times.
Yeah, so we help in obviously a couple of different ways. We help on the kind of branding and personal branding front in kind of helping them to, articulate their story, and actually figure out, okay, this is where we are now, and this is where we want to be in the next couple of years. And a lot of brands, like, they were set up 15 years ago and haven't been touched, and it doesn't reflect where that person is now. So we kind of take, their journey, their story, and basically bring it into where they are and where they want to be. And obviously that does involve a visual element with, with logos, with color palettes and everything to do with that. And then on the social media side, we do more of a done for you process, because what we found is when we give dentists the freedom of, okay, we want you to film X, Y, and Z for us, and this is how, this is what we want you to do, these same doubts crept in. So what we'll do is we'll go in there with a pre-agreed kind of content plan, and once we filmed everything with them, we'll be the ones editing it, captioning it, posting it, looking at all the reporting, the metrics, everything, and just leaving them with the time, with the time saved to go and do what they love, which is the clinical dentistry, and leaving us to kind of manage that account for them. And then obviously we come back, we look at what's worked, what hasn't, and just accelerate on from there.
Can you give me just one thing just to round off on? Can you give me an example, just to make this really tangible for the audience? Can you give us a case study off the top of your head where you had dentist Mr. Smith, Dr. Smith, and he or she, they were a little nervous to get out there, then they kind of saw the light, they went and did it, and when they did that, what then happened was their practice grew by X amount, or they were able to leave their job as an associate and start a squat or something along those lines.
Did you plan that when you said saw the light and the lights came on?
You know what? I've just realised that the lights are linked to us moving around. So because I saw Rahil move, and the lights came on.
They saw the
video.
light and that exact second. That was like a perfect Instagram moment.
I was waiting for that moment. I was waiting to use that line and then turn the lights on. That's what actually happened. But yes, there we go. It was all scripted. But yes, anyway, Rahil, case studies that you can think of. I'm sure you've had a few over the years.
Oh yeah, there's so many case studies on the social media side, and I think on the personal branding side, it's a bit harder to think on the personal branding side. It's one of those, when you most need it, they just escape your head. They're all on like our socials and our website, which is really annoying. But in terms of like practices that we work with, like, Lenham Dental's one of them. They came to us and they were literally like barely posting, like they knew the value in it.
Yeah.
And they every so often get a surge of motivation to do it, and they become so active for a week, and then busy practice, things to do. What's the first thing that drops off? Oh yeah, we don't need social media this week. It's fine. But they knew what they knew that the platform rewarded consistency, and they knew that they wanted to it's where their patients are, and they want to push themselves out there. So they kind of came to us, and we've been working with them for I think about 6 to 9 months now. And I think if you look at their stats, in terms of the metrics that everyone looks like, their followers, their views, everything like that is completely I don't think they've ever had stats like it. But I think the thing for us that is always, you know, the thing that we look at is they're actually getting patients from their organic social media. So as much as we love to focus on, oh yeah, they've increased their follower count by, you know, 600-700, and, you know, their video views are now like, you know, in you know, around 1,000, 2,000 per video, whereas before it was, you know, around a couple of hundred. Like, you know, these metrics are great, but what actually
How does that
matters
translate? Yeah.
is, you know, what is this doing for the practice? Yes, it's making us more visible, and it's actually bringing patients in. And each of those patients, you're not, you know, turning the paid lead, you know, the paid advertising tap on and having to pay for all of them. They're actually coming to you naturally. So those are always like the biggest wins for us when we see both associates and practices kind of actually getting those results from it from a patient point of view.
I think a